My name is Lisa, and I'm a nurse at a busy hospital in Ohio. I'm 38 years old and I've been married to my husband Mark for over 12 years. We have 2 kids, Emma who's 10 and Jake who's 7. Mark and I met when we were both much younger working our first jobs. He was a dance teacher at a local community center and I was finishing nursing school. Back then everything felt light and hopeful. He was charming, funny and always moving. He taught ballroom, Latin and even hip-hop to little kids. He loved what he did. I admired his passion even if it didn't make a lot of money. We weren't rich but we were happy, at least I thought we were. Over the years things changed. It wasn't dramatic or sudden. Just life piling up. Bills. Long hours. Kids getting sick. One missed date night after another. And slowly we started talking less and less. Mark seemed tired all the time and I was always stressed from my shifts at the hospital. He still danced but it didn't feel like joy anymore. Felt like routine. We had problems. Real ones. We didn't fight all the time but we didn't laugh either. I would get home late and he'd already be asleep. Or I'd find myself snapping at him for leaving dishes in the sink. Stupid little things. But they added up. I honestly thought we were drifting apart. I even started thinking maybe he was hiding something. I know that sounds bad but it wasn't just paranoia. He was coming home later than usual. He told me he was teaching private lessons to earn extra money and I believed him. Mostly. But sometimes he'd come home sweaty, like he'd been doing more than just dancing. And once I found glitter on his collar. He laughed it off, said it was from a kid's birthday party at the studio. So I didn't press too hard. I was exhausted myself and part of me didn't want to know. We had enough problems without adding secrets. At least that's what I told myself. One night things changed. I was doing laundry late at night. He was already asleep, the kids were in bed and I was sorting through his work clothes. I found a folded receipt in his pants pocket. I almost threw it out without looking but something stopped me. It was from a bar I'd never heard of. The name was weird, the Denver. The address didn't ring a bell. And the timestamp said 1:45 a.m. That didn't make sense. Mark was supposed to be teaching a private lesson that night until 9. He came home at 2, said he stayed late to mop the floors. But why was there a charge for $0 and a note? Performer. Mark tips only? I felt my stomach twist. I googled the address. It was a male strip club. For men. I remember sitting on the edge of our bed just staring at the receipt. I didn't know what to think. My husband, a stripper? In a men's club? 100 thoughts rushed through my head. Was he gay? Was he cheating on me? Was he in trouble? Did we need money that badly? I didn't sleep that night. I watched him breathe in the dark, trying to recognize the man next to me. I felt scared, confused, but weirdly, not angry. Just lost. The next morning I didn't say anything. I went to work like normal, helped a teenager who'd crashed his bike, and assisted with a difficult patient in the ER. But the whole time my mind was spinning. That night I couldn't keep it in. I asked him straight out. Mark, what's the den? He froze. For a second I saw the fear in his eyes. I can explain, he said. He sat down and took a deep breath. And then he told me everything. When I got home that evening my head was spinning. I didn't even know how to act. Should I pretend I didn't know? Should I confront him? I stood in the kitchen holding my bag, staring at nothing for a good 5 minutes. The kids were still at soccer practice and the house was quiet. Too quiet. My heart was beating fast. He came home not long after. He looked the same, calm, warm, tired. I studied his face, wondering how long he had been hiding this from me. He walked in, kissed me on the cheek and asked, "How was your day?" Just like always. I blurted it out without thinking. "You're not just a dance teacher, are you?" He froze. For a moment I saw panic in his eyes, but he quickly tried to play it off. "What do you mean?" I shook my head. "Don't lie, Jake. I know. I saw you." He didn't even ask what I saw. He just sighed and sat down. "Okay," he said quietly. "I guess it's time I told you everything." Jake started dancing at the club 2 years ago. Things had been tight financially. We never had enough for savings. With 5 kids, every dollar was accounted for. Jake said he couldn't sleep at night thinking about how we were going to pay for college. They deserve better, he said. They deserve options. So he took the job. At first he was just doing occasional private shows. Nothing too wild. Then the manager offered him regular nights at a private club. All male clients. No touching, no private rooms. Just dancing. I kept it secret because I was afraid of how you'd see me, he said. And I didn't want the kids to know. I didn't want them to be ashamed. I sat there not saying anything. I didn't feel angry. I felt surprised. A little confused. But more than anything, I felt something I hadn't felt in a while. Respect. He was doing something hard, uncomfortable for us. Quietly, without asking for praise. I had seen so many men run from their responsibilities. But Jake? He was dancing in secret so his kids could have a future. That night we sat and talked for hours. For the first time in a long time we were truly open with each other. He told me about the nights he hated it. The drunk clients. The embarrassment. The physical exhaustion. But he also told me how he reminded himself why he was doing it. Our family, our kids. I told him how I had noticed he was becoming more distant, and how I had thought he didn't care anymore. How I felt we were growing apart. And how guilty I felt for not asking more, for not seeing his effort. I thought you were just escaping, I said. I was, he replied. But not from you. From the pressure. From the feeling of not being enough. We cried. We held hands. And for the first time in years, we didn't feel like strangers in the same house. We agreed not to tell the kids, at least not now. They were still young and they wouldn't understand. To them, their dad was a dance teacher. And maybe that was enough. Jake offered to quit, but I told him no. I saw how much it meant to him to be able to save. And honestly, I couldn't judge anymore. I worked 12-hour shifts, often overnight. I'd seen people in all kinds of situations. Who was I to look down on someone doing what they had to do for their family? He promised he'd keep it safe, professional, and short-term. Just until we had enough saved to get ahead. I promised I'd never make him feel ashamed again. Over the next few weeks, something strange happened between us. We grew closer. I started noticing the little things he did again. How he'd always save the last piece of pie for the kids. How he remembered which night each child had a project due. How he helped with homework even after working all day. I think I had been so focused on the image of what I thought a husband should be, stable job, clean title, no secrets, that I forgot the real value. Love, sacrifice, effort. Jake might not be a doctor or a businessman. But he was a good man. A strong one. I found myself supporting him in ways I never expected. I started packing him healthy snacks for his nights at the club. I ironed his shirts, not because he asked but because I wanted him to look confident. I even suggested he take Saturdays off to rest. It wasn't easy. Some nights I still felt weird about it. I'd picture him dancing in front of strangers and something inside me would twist. But then I'd remember why he was doing it and the feeling would soften. He started checking in with me more. Letting me know when he'd be late, sharing funny things from his shifts, asking about my day. We became a team again. One night he came home early. He walked in quietly and sat next to me on the couch. I want to stop soon, he said. I think we're close. He showed me the savings account. Over $18,000. All from those nights. Quietly saved away. Not touched once. I don't want to do this forever, he said. But I needed you to know I did it for them. For us. I hugged him tight. I was proud. Not just of the money, but of the man he was. After our talk that night, something shifted deep inside me. Not just between Jake and me, but inside me as a woman, a wife, a mother. I used to think I needed my husband to follow a certain path, to look a certain way in front of the world. I didn't even realize how much I was holding him to those unspoken rules. Now I looked at him differently. I saw the quiet strength it took to do something uncomfortable and even shameful just for the good of others. That was a kind of love I hadn't appreciated before. It's strange how respect can grow out of something like that. But it did. I started asking myself why I had been so focused on appearances. Jake was always there, taking care of the kids, never complaining, being kind to me even when I was distant. And yet I'd been silently judging him for not earning more or being more successful. Maybe it was society, or maybe it was just my own insecurities. I worked hard as a nurse, came home exhausted, and sometimes I resented that he seemed to enjoy teaching dance. I thought he had it easy. Now I knew better. He had been carrying the burden in his own way, physically and emotionally. And he didn't even ask for credit. He just did what needed to be done. I started to feel guilty. For the times I rolled my eyes when he was tired. For the times I made comments like, "Must be nice to only work evenings." I didn't know what his evenings really looked like. We agreed to keep his side job between us. It wasn't about shame anymore. It was about peace. The kids didn't need to carry this. And truthfully, neither did our families or friends. People judge what they don't understand. We had our own understanding now. Some nights he'd come home and just sit in silence. I'd make him tea and we'd sit together without needing to say much. We both had hard jobs. Different kinds of hard, but hard all the same. I stopped feeling embarrassed about it. If anything, I started to feel proud. He had turned something unconventional into an act of love. Looking back, I saw how distant I had become before all this. I was working long shifts, sometimes double shifts. I was tired all the time. The kids were growing up so fast and I felt like I was missing everything. I had nothing left to give Jake at the end of the day. I started blaming him in my mind. For not doing more. For not understanding. For not filling the emotional gap I felt. But now I understood he was filling it in his own way. Just quietly. And I hadn't even seen it. I decided to be more present. To be more kind. I started texting him during my breaks. "How's your night going? Made you leftovers. Miss you." Simple things. But I saw how his face lit up when he read them. We were healing. We started spending more time together in the mornings after the kids left for school and before I went to work. Sometimes we just had coffee and sat on the porch. Sometimes we watched TV like we used to before the kids. And sometimes we just held each other. I began to notice little things again. How he always rubbed his thumb over my knuckles when we held hands. How he hummed when he cooked. How he smiled with his whole face when he looked at the kids. I had been missing these things for years. We even started being more affectionate. Slowly at first, like we were learning each other again. It wasn't about sex or romance. It was about connection. Intimacy. Trust. And I felt safe again. Like we were finally on the same page after a long time of misunderstanding each other. Strangely enough, the kids started to seem happier too. Maybe they felt the shift in the house. Fewer arguments. More laughter. More family dinners where we actually sat together and talked. One night our oldest said, "You guys have been really chill lately. It's nice." We both laughed. But I felt tears in my eyes. They noticed. Kids always do. Jake kept working at the club, but less often. He cut back to 2 nights a week. He said he wanted to be home more. And now that we had a plan, the urgency had lessened. We even started talking about taking a small trip, just the 2 of us. Something we hadn't done in years. Just a weekend away to reconnect. I did tell one person, my sister. I trusted her completely and I needed to say it out loud to someone else just once. At first she was shocked. "Are you serious?" she said. "Jake." But when I told her why, how he was saving for the kids, how he never spent a dime of it, how he didn't even tell me for so long, she softened. "Damn," she said. "That's kind of beautiful." That's exactly how I felt. Not sexy. Not scandalous. Just real. Honest. Human. Life is weird. You think you know someone. You think you know what your life will look like. And then one day something knocks you sideways. But not all surprises are bad. This secret, as strange as it was, saved us. Brought us back together. It made me see my husband in a new light. Not less of a man but more of one. I never thought I'd say this, but I respected Jake more now than I ever had before. And I was proud to be his wife. One evening Jake and I were sitting in the kitchen after the kids had gone to bed. He was helping me fold some laundry and we were just talking about nothing and everything. Felt so normal, so peaceful. I looked at him and said, "You know, I don't think I ever really saw how much you do for us. I'm sorry." He didn't say anything right away. He just gave me a small smile and reached over to squeeze my hand. "I didn't tell you to hide it from you," he said. "I just didn't want you to think less of me." That hit me harder than I expected. I realized that all this time he'd been carrying the fear that I wouldn't respect him. That I might stop loving him if I saw him differently. And honestly, there was a time when maybe that would have been true. But not anymore. It's important to say this. I didn't start respecting Jake because I felt sorry for him. I respected him because he made a choice that was hard, uncomfortable, and completely selfless. He could have just worked more dance classes. He could have asked me to pick up extra shifts. He could have complained that life wasn't fair. But instead he took on a job that most men would never even consider, just so we could have a little more for our kids' future. And he kept doing it week after week without praise, without recognition. That takes guts. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't what people dream of doing. But it was real and honest and done out of love. I knew now. This was a man I could truly lean on. We sat down one weekend and made a plan for the future. College was still years away, but we started a proper savings account and I added what I could from my own income. Felt good working together as a team. Not just financially but emotionally. We talked about where we'd want the kids to go to school, what kind of support they might need. We even started talking about downsizing the house when they were grown, maybe moving somewhere quieter. Jake was excited about the idea of opening his own dance studio one day. I told him I'd support him no matter what. We were dreaming again. That hadn't happened in a long time. A few weeks later, Jake told me he was thinking about quitting the club soon. Not immediately but sometime in the next few months. "I think I've done enough," he said. "We're in a better place now. And honestly, I'm tired." I could see it on his face. He wasn't the same carefree guy I used to tease for loving salsa music and slow mornings. He was caring more now, emotionally and physically. I told him I supported whatever he decided. And I meant it. If he wanted to keep going, that was okay. If he wanted to stop, even better. The important thing was that the choice was his. Our marriage slowly started to feel new again. Not perfect but better. Softer. We laughed more. We talked more. We touched each other more, not just physically but emotionally. There were no walls anymore. I stopped waiting for grand gestures or romantic dates. I found joy in the small things. Jake making me coffee in the morning, picking up groceries without being asked, rubbing my shoulders when I came home from a long shift. Love was showing up. Over and over. Even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. One Saturday Jake surprised me with dinner reservations. Nothing fancy, just our favorite little Italian place across town. He even got my sister to watch the kids for the evening. We hadn't been out together in ages. At dinner he held my hand across the table and smiled. "You look beautiful," he said. I laughed. "You've seen me in scrubs and messy buns for the last 10 years. I don't even remember how to dress up." "Well," he said, "you look beautiful anyway." It was simple. It was honest. And it meant everything. That night reminded me of how we used to be, before the stress, the kids, the bills, the long shifts and side jobs. We were just two people who loved each other. And that was enough. Funny how life works. Jake spent years teaching people how to dance. Salsa, swing, ballroom. And I spent years running around in hospitals helping people survive. We were both in different kinds of service. Both tired in different ways. But somehow, without realizing it, we'd been dancing together all along. Through the good days and bad. Through distance and closeness. Through disappointment and rediscovery. It wasn't always pretty. Sometimes we stepped on each other's toes. Sometimes we moved out of sync. But we never stopped the music. And now we were finally learning to lead together. It's been over a year since I found out about Jake's side job. A lot has changed since then, most of it quietly in the background of our everyday life. We didn't tell many people. Not because we were ashamed, but because it wasn't anyone else's business. This was something between us. Something personal. Sacred even. At first, I wondered if I'd always see it when I looked at him. The glitter, the stage, the fact that he'd danced in front of strangers for money. But that image didn't last. What stuck with me was something else entirely. The look in his eyes when he talked about our kids. The tiredness in his voice when he came home late. The care he took to make sure I never found out, because he didn't want me to carry the weight of it. That's what stayed. I don't think I ever truly trusted Jake before all this. Not in the full, raw way that trust should feel. We lived like roommates for a long time, sharing space but not always thoughts. Raising kids but not always dreams. Now it's different. We don't keep secrets anymore. We ask each other hard questions. We give honest answers. And even when it's uncomfortable, we keep talking. That kind of honesty didn't come easily. It took pain, confusion, and more than a few late-night conversations. But we got there. And I wouldn't trade that for anything. Jake isn't a fantasy. He's not perfect. He doesn't always say the right thing. He forgets to put the towels in the dryer. He sometimes zones out when I talk about work. But he's real. He's a man who saw a need and found a way to meet it. Who swallowed his pride to help his family. Who showed up night after night in a place most men would never dare walk into. He's still the same person I married, but now I see all of him. And I respect him more than ever. For a long time I felt embarrassed even though I never said it out loud. Embarrassed that I didn't know. Embarrassed that my husband was doing that kind of job. Embarrassed that maybe I hadn't been enough. But shame doesn't help anyone. Jake never asked for praise. He never wanted to be admired. He just wanted to contribute quietly and without judgment. And once I let go of my own hang-ups, I saw how beautiful that really was. Love isn't just romance and roses. Sometimes it's messy and weird. Sometimes it wears a costume and dances under colored lights. And that's okay. We never told the kids. Maybe someday when they're older we will. But for now they don't need to carry that knowledge. They just need to know that their parents love them, and that we're doing everything we can for their future. They think their dad is just a really cool dance teacher. And I'm okay with that. One day when they're adults, maybe they'll understand what real sacrifice looks like. Maybe they'll realize that love comes in all shapes and jobs. Maybe they'll look back and think, wow, our parents really did their best. That's all I want. We're not rich. We're not extraordinary. We're just two people building a life. I still work long shifts. Jake still teaches dance. We still worry about bills and groceries and whether the kids are spending too much time on their phones. But our home is different now. Warmer. Softer. Stronger. Sometimes I watch Jake from across the room helping our son with homework or dancing with our daughter in the living room, and I think this is the man I almost lost. Not because he cheated. Not because he lied. But because I stopped seeing him. And now I do. I never thought I'd say this, but I'm glad I found out. Not because I wanted to know what he was doing, but because it broke something between us, and forced us to rebuild it. Stronger. More honest. More real. Love isn't what you expect. It's what you fight for. It's what you grow into. And sometimes, it surprises you in the weirdest, most unexpected ways. My husband was a secret stripper. And I love him more for it.